From Amnesty International to the International Federation of Journalists, everyone is now rallying to the cause of Julian Assange. For some, they have been late to the battlefield, but then, as the Russians say, after the war, a lot of brave soldiers turn up.
For nearly a decade, some, now holding the banner, demanded that Julian Assange should return to Sweden because he had a case to answer. As it turned out, there was no case, though if Assange had returned to Sweden, he would now be in a federal penitentiary for espionage.
Still, better late than never.
The espionage case against Julian Assange has been falling apart for months. Yahoo News revealed CIA plans to kidnap and, if necessary, kill Julian Assange, even if it meant a shootout with Russian diplomats on the streets of Knightsbridge.
Less well known is the admission by a formerly key figure in the Assange circle that he had fabricated parts of the evidence in the American indictment against Assange. The man who broke that story is Bjartmar Alexandersson, who joins us now on the Sputnik. Bjartmar, thank you for coming on the Sputnik. For those who don't know, and I assure you, in this world dominated by the mainstream media, that's most of us, what is the importance of this story? What did you find out?
Well, I interviewed the main witness in the Assange case, and that witness, according to the indictment, is called Teenager in NATO Country 1. And that teenager is Mr. Sigurður Þórðarson, an Icelandic citizen, and that NATO Country 1 is actually Iceland. So what I revealed after about 9 hours of interviewing with him and going over a few thousand chat logs regarding his communications while he was working for WikiLeaks in a minor role and also working for the US government at the time as an FBI informant. It seems that the indictment and what it says in the indictment and what Mr. Sigurður Þórðarson tells me does not add up. And this is quite important because his testimony comes in the updated indictment of the US government in the case against Julian Assange. And in this updated indictment, they are trying to paint the picture of Mr. Assange as a hacker and not a journalist. And therefore, they can get away and release themselves away from the so-called New York Times problem, which the Obama administration had.
Which is that if the story can be published in the New York Times, and that's not a crime, how could the furbishing of that story to the New York Times be a crime?
Exactly. So he is defended by the First Amendment according to US law and all the legal experts I've spoken to regarding it. If that is the case that he's a journalist, but as soon as the US government can change Mr. Assange to a hacker, which in this case they're using the testimony of Mr. Þórðarson, then it's a complete different story. And he can be arrested because he's not a journalist, but a hacker.
The teenager sounds a charming young fellow, but he admitted to you to lying and fabricating. What were the key lies and fabrications, according to him?
The thing is that in the indictment, the best case, or in the indictment, is actually about that Mr. Assange asked Mr. Þórðarson to hack the Icelandic parliament and gather information of phone recordings of Icelandic members of parliament. According to our research, this is a fabrication in the indictment. There was no hacking of the Icelandic parliament. There was no police investigation here in Iceland even. So this never happened. And according to Mr. Sigurður Þórðarson, he was only given a USB key with files on it. And he believed that those files were audio recordings. In my conversation with him, he could not confirm that because he never took a look at them. And he also gave it personally, according to him, to Assange. But there's no evidence to back that up. Also, it's in the indictment that Mr. Assange asked Mr. Sigurðsson to hack the Icelandic search and rescue program so he can trace police vehicles in Iceland. That's not true. This account was actually Mr. Sigurður Þórðarson, his own account, and there's no evidence that ever shown that Mr. Assange actually used it. And the third one is is actually about basically in the indictment. It says that Mr. Assange asked Thordarson to hack a bank to get bank documents. Well, there was no hacking of no bank because all Icelandic journalists had these bank documents before. So there was no crime. And in our investigation, the name of Mr. Julian Assange has never, ever entered the police database here in Iceland. So there have been no investigations. And even back in 2011, when the FBI came here first to discuss to Mr. Thordarson, the FBI lied about what they were doing in Iceland, and the Minister of Interior, Mr. Ögmundur Jónasson, actually kicked out the FBI for lying to the Icelandic government. So this case regarding his testimony is filled with holes, and we're still working on it and seeing how many more holes we can actually find.
So who and what is this teenager? Is he a plant, a psychopath, a con man? What is he?
Yeah, that's actually true. He is actually a convicted con artist, and he was convicted also in Iceland for sexually abusing minors, 9 in total. There were actually 15 victims that we know of. 6 of them did not get their day in court, and actually one of them committed suicide after he knew that his case would not go to court. He's been conning here in Iceland for several years, and he's stolen millions of Icelandic krona, which is roughly around 1.5 million pounds in total through his crime spree. And he's very, very known here in Iceland by every citizen, and nobody trusts him here in Iceland to do anything.
So wait a minute now. You're saying that the whole world is fixated upon a case being brought by the most powerful state on earth based on the testimony of a convicted child molester and a convicted con man. Is that what you're saying?
He is convicted of both, yes, in Icelandic courts, and he was even convicted for stealing money from WikiLeaks, 50,000 United States dollars. And he's now actually in prison in Iceland because after he got the immunity agreement with the FBI in 2020, he actually was on a crime spree, according to the Icelandic police, and also according to my research. And he's been stealing again. He stole several tons of chicken from one company and sold it to a restaurant. And he's basically scamming Icelandic companies and stealing a lot from them. And he's now been in jail for the past 6 weeks. He was arrested in September, and he's, according to my sources inside the prosecution office here in Iceland, they are just going to keep him in jail until he will get his day in court. This is a man who is also under investigation for basically fraudulently signing the signature of his former lawyer, so forging it to do some paperwork. So he's everywhere and in the con artist game in Iceland.
Well, you can see why nobody wants your story out there in the public arena, can't you? Because if I went to the British public, the American public, and said, do you know how much money has been spent on the prosecution of Julian Assange, based significantly in the latest indictment on the word of such a man as you describe the teenager to be?
Well, I don't know. I haven't spoken to a lot of the public in the US or the UK, but I know what the public in Iceland knows, that they wouldn't trust him for nothing here in Iceland. And he's a very known figure in the criminal world here. He has spent a lot of time in Icelandic jail, and which he is now still in. But it's well, I have to come to defend. Actually, the Guardian, they actually did an article out this and spoke to Mr. Thordarson, where he confirmed everything that we have written about it here at Stundin in Iceland. So there are some good journalists there and coming to get it out. But this is a developing story, and hopefully more media outlets will pick it up.
The Assange case might be coming to an end. We might get a verdict in the next few weeks. It might throw the American case out. Assange might be freed. If that happens, then the story you broke is going to turn out to have been world historic. And yet, if you don't mind me putting it this way, you're rather an inexperienced journalist, 3 years in the business. This is a remarkable debut, Bjartmar.
Yes, I only started about 3.5 years ago, and I don't know, maybe this fits me, but I've been doing quite good stories here in Iceland, which is not known internationally. Trust me about that. But yes, this connection during Mr. Thordarson is an international one now, and I was available to go through this. But I had already written about Mr. Thordarson, about his con game he was playing here in Iceland. So I was able to get in touch with him regarding the FBI case and talk about it. And there were a lot of people who helped out here, both here in Stundin and other places in Iceland, to get this story through. It took through a few months to get it through. It was a lot of work, a lot of time and effort put in this. And as I said, this is the outcome where we can see that the updated indictment against Mr. Assange is full of holes regarding the testimony of teenager in NATO country 1. So
well, it could be beginner's luck, or it could be a Pulitzer Prize-winning piece of journalism. I suspect the latter. My last question, and briefly, how did such a man end up in the inner circle of something as significant in the world as WikiLeaks? They weren't keeping their guard up very well.
Well, here's the thing. Mr. Thordarson actually had a story that he was a hacker. And actually, his nickname is Siggi the Hacker. People would actually know him better under that than his real name, which he actually changed, by the way, from Sigurður Ingi Þórðarson just to Sigurður Þórðarson. This is a known thing here in Iceland about what criminals do to be unrecognized. But the thing here regarding this testimony and regarding his role in the WikiLeaks was he came in as a fraudulent. He said that he leaked information to the media, but actually he sold the information to the media, actually to a colleague of mine for 100,000 Icelandic kroners, bank documents. And this is what got him on the map. And he was actually then recruited as a volunteer for WikiLeaks in a minor role, though. He had a role, that's correct. But according to all our information, it was a minor one, but he had access. And of course, I have no idea how people could have made that mistake, but a mistake was made, I think, because he is actually, according to court documents here in Iceland, he's a borderline sociopath, according to court experts here in Iceland. So this is a strange character, and it has had an effect, a large effect, actually, on the US case against Mr. Assange.
I hope you win the Pulitzer Prize. Thanks for joining us on the Sputnik.
Thank you so much.